Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving deep into the strategic and technical process of building a modern website. But instead of just talking code, we're going to look at this through a really specific lens: building a house. Because let's be honest, far too often people just jump straight into picking out the digital curtains, right? They want the colors, the fonts, the flashy animations, way before they've even poured the concrete foundation. So we're going through the actual source materials and expert methodologies you absolutely need to build a digital house that doesn't just look incredible, but actually stands the test of time.
But right off the bat, let's establish the stakes here. Consider this genuinely shocking statistic from Google's research. If your website's loading time drops from just 1 second down to 5 seconds, a visitor's probability of bouncing away increases by 90%. 90%. Literally, before your visitor even gets a chance to see your beautiful design or read your compelling copy, almost all of them have walked away, simply because the door took too long to open. Make no mistake, if we don't build this digital house correctly from the ground up, nothing else matters.
So here's our blueprint for today's explainer. We'll start with website strategy, move into information architecture and flow. Then we'll tackle mastering responsive web design, dig into core web vitals and speed, and finally, wrap up with crucial mistakes to avoid.
All right, part 1, the blueprint, website strategy.
Skipping the planning phase of a website is exactly like building a house with rooms that don't have doors. Strategy absolutely has to come before a single line of code is written or a color palette is chosen. So we have to start with one core question. What is this website's job? Think of your site as a custom-built tool. As the source material points out, you wouldn't use a hammer to drive a screw, right? Are you building a high-traffic e-commerce store, or is this just a simple portfolio? Every single design choice needs to be made with a very specific target audience in mind. You have to ask what function this digital front door is supposed to serve. If it's built for a 25-year-old tech founder, yeah, it might be fast-paced and high-tech. But if it's for a 65-year-old retiree, it needs large fonts and dead simple navigation.
This brings us to a really crucial point. We have to break that primary goal down into SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Doing this ensures your website acts as a measurable business tool, not just some abstract piece of art. Take a vague goal like increase online sales. A SMART goal turns that into increase online sales of our flagship product by 15% within the next 3 months. See the difference? That specific target allows us to set key performance indicators, or KPIs, like conversion rates or cart abandonment rates. That's how we actually measure if our digital house is doing its job.
Okay, moving on to part 2, information architecture and flow.
Now, information architecture, or IA, is definitely not just a visual sitemap. It's really about bridging the gap between your internal company jargon and the words your users actually search for. The sources recommend this awesome technique called card sorting. Basically, you hand real users sticky notes with your content on them and ask them to group things together. Why? Because what makes total sense internally will often completely baffle your customers. Take this one case study. A company hid their FAQs under the About Us tab. Literally nobody could find them. When they finally moved it to the main menu based on IA testing, their customer service inquiries plummeted. You have to speak your user's language.
And a fantastic rule of thumb here is the 3-click rule. Think about it this way. If a critical page, let's say your pricing or contact form, is buried 5 layers deep in a menu, it practically doesn't exist for the user. We want to build a shallow, wide architecture rather than a deep, narrow one. Keep those vital rooms right up near the front door.
Which leads perfectly into how information architecture translates into a user flow. Visualizing a standard flow like this helps us map out the exact steps a visitor takes, and more importantly, it highlights friction points. For instance, analyzing user flows for a health food client showed that forcing users to register for an account before checking out was acting as a massive roadblock. It was a deal breaker. By simply adding a checkout as guest option to that flow, their checkout completions jumped by 18%. So map the steps, find the friction, and remove it.
Let's roll into part 3, mastering responsive web design. Here's the truth. A static desktop mindset is totally obsolete. With over 60% of traffic coming from phones, we really have to contrast the old way of building with modern, mobile-first, fluid grids. On a desktop, sure, we rely on precise mouse clicks and those fancy hover effects. But on mobile, hover effects literally do not exist. Users are navigating with a thumb while scrolling vertically. Plus, keep in mind that Google now uses mobile-first indexing. That means their search bots are literally viewing and ranking your site based entirely on the mobile experience. Desktop is officially a secondary concern. So, to keep from frustrating those mobile users, the sources outline some pretty strict sizing rules. If your text is smaller than 16 pixels, people are going to have to squint. But here is the most fascinating detail to me. Buttons must be at least 44 pixels tall. Want to know why? Because according to Apple and Google design guidelines, an average human fingertip is about 10 millimeters wide, and that translates perfectly to a 44-pixel touch target. Anything smaller or placed closer than 8 pixels apart, and your user is going to tap the wrong link, get incredibly frustrated, and just bounce.
Next up, Part 4, Core Web Vitals and Speed.
Just like a house needs fast plumbing and electricity, your site needs speed. Google uses 3 highly technical acronyms here to measure user experience, known as Core Web Vitals. First is LCP, which measures how fast the main content loads. You absolutely want that under 2.5 seconds. Then there's INP. That measures how fast the site responds when a user actually clicks a button. That needs to be practically instant, under 200 milliseconds. Finally, CLS measures visual stability. We've all been there, right? You go to click a button, the whole page suddenly jumps, and you click an ad instead? That is a bad CLS score, and Google will actively penalize your search rankings if your site does that.
So how do we actually hit those targets? Well, it requires taking a few specific optimization steps. Usually, the biggest culprit of a slow site is massive, uncompressed images. Transitioning to next-generation formats, like WebP or AVI, can compress your image file sizes by 30 to 50% without losing any visual quality. Combine that with lazy loading, which is where images at the bottom of the page don't even load until the user scrolls down to see them, and you dramatically reduce the time it takes for your digital front door to open.
And finally, Part 5, Crucial Mistakes to Avoid.
You know, it is remarkably easy to sabotage your own user experience. We constantly see sites using tiny mobile fonts, smaller than 14 pixels, or buttons clustered way too close together. We see people uploading massive, megabyte-sized images straight from a camera, which instantly tanks those Core Web Vitals we just talked about. Designers often use internal jargon that leaves users completely lost. But one of the sneakiest mistakes? Developers simply using code to hide bulky desktop content on mobile screens. The problem with that is the phone still downloads all that hidden content in the background, secretly burning through your users' data and their patience.
At the end of the day, building a website isn't just an art project. It's a highly strategic architectural endeavor. Every single pixel, every millisecond, and every menu item dictates whether someone actually steps into your house or just turns around at the porch. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Take out your phone right now, open your own website, and try to accomplish your main business goal. Is your digital front door actually inviting people in, or is it secretly turning them away? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.